You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. With the LSU season ending in the ReliaQuest Bowl with a win, we're expecting this week we'll start to get all of the draft declarations. The players that are staying, the players that are going, certainly some portal news as well. But the first player to announce that he is headed to the NFL draft and foregoing his remaining eligibility is defensive tackle Mekhi Wingo. Released a statement on social media earlier today. Thank Coach Jamar Cain and Pat Hill and Coach Steeples, Robert Steeples, who was a high school coach of Mekhi Wingo. Is a big reason why Wingo ended up in Baton Rouge coming out of the transfer portal. Thank Eli Drinkwitz, who coached him at Missouri, and Brian Kelly, who brought him to Baton Rouge. But Mekhi Wingo did declare that he is foregoing his remaining eligibility and headed off to the NFL draft. A couple things. First, congrats to Mekhi Wingo. This is a guy who started his college career at Mizzou, and when he came to LSU, he was relatively unheralded. Remember the circumstance that allowed Mekhi Wingo really to emerge in all of our awareness, and it was Mason Smith's injury. Going into the 2022 season, we weren't talking about Mekhi Wingo. We weren't. Going into that season, we were talking about how dominant Mason Smith was in camp and how this was going to be his time to break out. And then Mason Smith gets injured on the opening defensive series, and your rotation became basically three guys: Jaquelin Roy, Jacobian Guillory, Mekhi Wingo. And Mekhi Wingo was a third-team All-American by the Associated Press, a guy who, going into last season, was an afterthought as a transfer and ended up earning everybody's attention and respect, playing 90-some-odd% of the defensive snaps a season ago and earning third-team All-America honors. After that, coming into this season, a transfer who had played just one season in Baton Rouge ends up getting one of the greatest honors that a player at LSU can get, and that's the 18 jersey. As a matter of fact, here was Brian Kelly talking about the decision to give Mekhi Wingo the 18 jersey.
For that person to wear 18, he's got to have the leadership capabilities. He's got to represent incredible traits and somebody that really is going to wear that jersey both on and off the field and representing LSU football. And that number 18 went to Mekhi Wingo. I'm really proud of him.
So think about it. A guy who came here relatively unheralded, injury forces him into the lineup, becomes a third-team All-American, comes back into this season, gets the 18 jersey, plays with an abdominal injury that none of us really knew about, ends up having to have surgery before the Alabama game, thought he might come back, the season didn't go how you'd hoped, so nobody would have blamed him. He comes back to play in the bowl game, gets the sack on 3rd and 10, which gave LSU the ball before its ultimate game-winning drive, and now he's off to the NFL draft, returning for the bowl game. Another reason, like, major hat tip to Mekhi Wingo. Giant question about his draft stock, which everybody's going to make their own decision. But I did a little digging today. Mel Kiper ranks Mekhi Wingo as the 10th best defensive tackle prospect in this year's draft. CBS has him as the 7th best defensive tackle prospect in this draft. NFL Draft Buzz has him as the 14th best defensive tackle. Pro Football Focus didn't have a position grade, but had him as the 63rd overall prospect. By and large, he's ranked as a late second-round pick. So you might look and say, why not come back and be a first-round pick? Maybe, but everybody's got their own decision to make. But Mekhi Wingo is pretty much a consensus day 2 pick in the draft, and you wish him well. He gave LSU his all for 2 seasons, and you respect the effort and what he did. The gigantic question for LSU now is what you look like on the defensive line, because this is pretty devastating. Your 2 best defensive linemen this year were Jordan Jefferson, who's out of eligibility, and Mekhi Wingo, of course, who was injured, came back, and now he's leaving for the draft. You're waiting to hear decisions from Mason Smith and Jacobian Guillory. You desperately want those guys to come back so you have veteran, experienced starters on your defensive line. After that, you've got Jalen Lee and Paris Shan. Shan played inside and out, and Lee was a rotational guy that didn't play much this year. You're bringing in Sean Washington, Dominic McKinley, and Demiron Johnson. But remember, you lost a bunch of your young depth. Ty G. Hill, Bryce Langston, Fitzgerald West. I'm not telling you these guys that you're losing All-Americans, but you're losing guys who had been your young depth that would be next to step up. But those guys left, and now Mekhi Wingo's gone, and Jefferson's out of eligibility. So if you get Smith and Guillory back, awesome. If you get Smith and Guillory, you've got your starters there, and then you're looking behind them with some of the young guys that we just talked about. Sean Washington, who's coming in from JUCO, Dominic McKinley, who's a 5-star. You've got I mentioned Lee and Shan. You've got enough numbers. But if Smith and Guillory decide to go pro, defensive line isn't there's there's wants, there's needs, and there's musts. If with Mekhi Wingo gone and Jordan Jefferson out of eligibility, if you don't get Mason Smith and Jacobian Guillory back, defensive tackle, interior defensive line isn't a want or need. It is a must bold underscore, because you cannot go into next season with Jalen Lee, Parrish, Shan, Sean Washington, and then a bunch of freshmen. Like, you just can't do that in the SEC against the schedule LSU's got to play and expect it to go well. Hat tip, salute to Mekhi Wingo. A great Tiger, and thankful for the 2 years that we got to see him wear the purple and gold. And totally respect his decision. But now, because of him leaving, it makes Mason Smith and Jacobian Guillory's decisions even more critical for LSU. You got to get those guys back. And if you don't, you had better go hammer the portal hard this spring. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.